One of the things that men struggle with the most, that we constantly reinforce to them as their wives and as women, that society constantly reinforces to them, counseling reinforces to them, that they struggle with the most, is that everything is their fault. Hello, I'm Karen Seitz, and this is the Happy Wife School. This podcast is for married women to realize that we are responsible for our happiness, that no one and no thing can make us happy, and that our husbands are not the source of our unhappiness. In each episode, I red pill married women to know that we are the problem in our marriages to good men. For the good men, this podcast will wake you up to the realities of your wife's woman ways, to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to her emasculation in a constructive, caring way. Before we dive into today's episode, a couple reminders. My message is meant for common and usual marital issues. My podcast is not intended for abusive, violent, or compulsive behaviors in a marriage that are threatening or dangerous. Also, please take a second to visit my website and learn more about my courses, which offer solutions for married women and good men. You can find the link in the description below. With all that being said, let's get started. Today, we are talking about 7 things a man needs from his wife. And I saw a comment before I got started, and it was so perfect. A gentleman said, respect and affection is really all I need. And he couldn't be more right in that good men are very simple. So good men don't need 7 things or 10 things or 20 things from his wife. But what I want to be able to do is I want to just share a little bit before I get into the 7 things a man needs from his wife. Just share a little bit. How did I get here? Why do I do what I do in working with women and men? And how did I get here in my own journey? Because although the men listening are, of course, going to get wonderful value out of today's, I'm speaking to the women in this, and I want to set that up a little bit and why. Because good men are really simple, and they would certainly never pull out a list of 7 things or 10 things or anything more than a couple things that they need in a relationship. But I want women to hear a little bit of what my journey has been as a wife and the things that I've learned in my marriage and the things that I've learned being married to a very good man, and how pivotal that has been for me to really know and understand myself as a woman, and to feel good about myself, to know who I am, and to be able to be a wife and a woman that I'm really proud of. And it continues to be my marriage, my relationship with my husband, being a wife. Those continue to be my greatest teachers to really evolve as a woman, to evolve as the best version of myself. And my husband gets the benefit and my marriage gets the benefit so that we can have a healthy, happy relationship. And that's really why I'm here and have this channel, is for good men to be able to understand what's happening in their marriage and undo the brainwashing and the gaslighting of their wives. And also, when I started my channel, the aim was completely toward women, to the women who do want to hear the things I have to teach, who do resonate with seeing themselves as the problem in their marriage, who know that they are married to good men. I want to share, when I first started the channel last year, my mentor, David, and I sat down and really got focused on what's my message here as a guideline for me. And this is an expression of my own journey and what I just shared with you. But the purpose of the channel and what I want the women to hear is that, and we know this about ourselves as women, is that we've never known ourselves as women or how to express ourselves as women. We've never known ourselves as women or how to express ourselves as women, because we're so busy being who we think we need to be. We're busy trying to be like a man, thinking that's how we're going to feel equal and appreciated and confident and secure in ourselves. And one of the things you will hear from women most often is how disconnected we feel from ourselves, how we don't feel like we know who we are, and how we feel like a little girl trapped inside a woman's body. I've shared that so many times. That's to a T how I felt in myself 10 years ago at 30 years old. Just no connection or understanding of what it really meant to be me as a woman. And so the purpose of the channel is to teach women that being a wife is how we evolve as women. Being a wife is how we evolve as women. Our husbands are the beneficiaries. They get the benefit. Our marriages get the benefit. But marriage is a journey to get to know ourselves and really express ourselves as women. And we need the context of being with a man to discover the wonderful, incredible qualities that we have, that when we are connected to and expressing those qualities of who we are as a woman and a wife is how we know ourselves as women and feel really good about ourselves and how we are showing up. And it's in the journey of knowing ourselves as women through the context of being a wife and being married to a good man that we develop a healthy relationship with ourselves. And then in that journey, we find our happiness within, feeling good about who we are and having a healthy relationship with ourselves. That's been what my marriage and my relationship with my husband has been for me. And he gets the benefit. We have a healthy, lovely dance together. When I lived in Camp Victim, only thinking of myself, only thinking of my needs and who I needed my husband to be for me, the things I told myself and him that he needed to change for me to be happy in the relationship. Living in that place, I was miserable. My husband suffered and was miserable in the marriage because I put all the pressure and all the burden on him to make me happy and meet my needs. That's what we see from so many different influencers and channels and social media accounts out there about relationships. So much of it is geared towards what the man needs to do for the woman. There's very, very little out there about what a man might need in the relationship, that as women, if we just give them those things in breadcrumbs, and I often say, I hope we can find it in ourselves to give a lot more than that. But if we just give breadcrumbs of the things that make them feel good and secure in a relationship, which are just part of a healthy relationship, they will go get the moon and stars and lay them at our feet. It's really, really that simple. But the problem for me was living in Camp Victim, pointing the finger outside of me to my husband about why I was unhappy in the relationship, the things he needed to do or change. There was no change. Because when I blamed my husband, there was no impetus to look at myself and how I was showing up in the relationship, what I was providing or not providing as an expression of being who I am and being a wife. I could only see what I thought my husband wasn't doing or the things that he was doing to contribute to the problems in the relationship. It was only when I moved into Camp Take Responsibility, looking at myself, that things began to change, because then I could be the solution. I had something to work on in me that I actually had control over. The other problem in my marriage was that I had no commitment to myself. No commitment to myself, no commitment to my husband and how I was showing up in the marriage. And again, that's where my husband suffered. I suffered. I was miserable. I had to be given the context. I had to be red pilled, which is why this is the red pill for women. I had to be red pill. I had to be woken up to see that being married to a good man, that I was the problem. It was me. And only by seeing that I was the problem could I then be the solution and begin to change how I showed up and actually consider my husband and his needs as a man, that things began to change. So why does it work that way? I want to give just a brief reminder of why it works this way for us as women. That if you are married to a good man, that you are the problem, because that can feel like a tough pill to swallow, but it's actually a very empowering pill to swallow, because if you can recognize that, things can change very, very quickly. And I know there's women listening, or what that will listen, who will say, well, I do all these things. He's the one not doing anything. What about my needs? So you want to listen to this carefully about why it's actually the opposite with a good man. A good man's nature is that he is caring, loving, thoughtful, hardworking, responsible. That's his nature. And the epitome of a good man is that all he wants is for his wife to be happy. And he will do just about anything to try to make his wife happy. What happens is that as women, we live in camp victim. We're unhappy in ourselves. We project that unhappiness in ourselves onto our husbands. And through our behaviors, we make them wrong and bad, which is emasculation. And it pushes good men away. So eventually, over time, they begin to withdraw. They disengage from the relationship. They might rebel. They check out. They might fight back, which is a consequence of our behaviors and how we are showing up. We're the ones pushing them away that causes them to withdraw, disengage, and stop trying to do the things that they think or we think will make us happy. So ladies, we have to go first. We have to be willing to evaluate and take a look in the mirror of how we are showing up in the marriage, how we are treating our husbands, to work on ourselves and show up differently, not to get them to re-engage, not with a hidden agenda of what we need them to do or who we need them to be for us, but actually for ourselves, as like what I shared in the beginning, to value ourselves, to be a woman of character and integrity, and use the role of being a wife as our greatest journey to evolve into a real woman and be the best version of ourselves. Our husbands get the benefit. Being a good wife is noble. And noble means that we are admired and respected because one is unselfish and morally good. When we live our life from a virtuous place of character and integrity, not because of who we think we need to be for society or others or what we're supposed to do or even for our husbands, but when we act in virtuous ways of character and integrity for ourselves, that is a surefire path to happiness. I have a little bust of Aristotle. And the reason being is that I most relate with Aristotle's explanation of happiness through living a virtuous life and valuing virtues. That is the path of happiness that I teach, that when we hold ourselves to a standard of character and integrity, even in the face of life's biggest challenges and adversities, and we do that simply for ourselves because it's who we want to be, that's what shows us that we value ourselves and makes us feel really good about who we are internally, which leads to fulfillment and being content and feeling meaningful and purposeful in life, which is really what it means to be happy. So ladies, the things I'm going to share with you today are a way for you to commit to yourself, to make your marriage, your husband, yourself a priority as a path to feeling really good about who you are, and cherry on top, having a fantastic, lovely, happy, healthy marriage and a wonderful, wonderful life. And you will have a good man that is right there waiting for you to re-engage when you really just treat him nicely. These are the 7 things that we're going to get into. It's just a way to be nice as an expression of who you want to be, how you want to know yourself. And again, your husband gets the benefit. And for the good men listening, you want to know, one of the principles I teach is that it's incumbent upon you to know what is reasonable of how you should be treated by your wife. It doesn't mean that you have any control to make her treat you these ways, but that it's important for you to know what is reasonable in a healthy relationship. And that if your wife was willing and wanted to prioritize and make the marriage and you a priority, then this is what you would receive back. It's likely you're not receiving these things, which is why you're here and watching. And the key is that not to be a victim to that, but to understand what's happening in the relationship, to again dissolve the brainwashing and the gaslighting of your wife that you're the problem somehow and her not treating you in these ways. When you see the reality and the truth, that's where you can actually begin to rebuild your strength and confidence. So your wife no longer has that power and control over you. And ladies, as I go into these, remember, this is what you do for yourself so you feel good about yourself. If you try to be a good wife because of what you want to get back in return from your husband, or you have a hidden agenda, or you're doing it from a place of this is who you think you're supposed to be, or putting on a facade, this doesn't work. It only works from, I want to be a good wife for me and have my husband get the benefit, and I want to feel good about myself. The cherry on top is that if you treat a good man well as an expression of who you are and who you want to be, then he will do anything you want him to do within reason. And sometimes maybe things he shouldn't do. But that's why this works with a good man and why we have to go first. He will be right there waiting for you, and you'll begin to see the good man that he is and the ways he wants to care for you and show up in the relationship that we've been blind to, living in camp victim, making it about the man and what they need to do for us. We want to flip that to see how can we show up, feel good about ourselves, and our husbands get the benefit of that. The 7 things that a man needs from his wife, I want to go into some newer angles and remind you that the 3 very important foundational things that a man needs in a relationship are respect, sex and affection, and appreciation. So let's dive into 7 things a man needs from his wife. The first one is reciprocity. Reciprocity, meaning a mutual exchange of support, emotional investment, care, and love. Like I've been sharing just in the setup for today, really a good man just wants his wife to be nice to him, to treat him like a human being, because that's who he is as a good man. His nature being caring, loving, thoughtful, kind, returning that back is all a good man really wants. Just giving back the care and love that he freely gives. And showing him that you're committed and that you value him in the marriage. That he's not on the bottom of the totem pole, that he's on the top of the totem pole, that he's a priority, that the marriage is a priority to us, and that we are committed. And that reciprocity to think of him, to consider him, to be thoughtful of him is a huge part in how he feels that commitment from you, that he is a priority. That reciprocity also includes having empathy for our husbands. Instead of being so selfish and self-centered of what's going on for us, what we need is slowing down and thinking about what they might be going through, what they have on their plate, and responding in a way to let them know we are thinking of them. My husband's going through a transition in his career. And I've been having to really catch myself in my woman ways. I say often on the channel, I'm a woman. I'm not perfect. I've changed tremendously, and I'm a good wife and a good woman to my husband and to myself as an expression of who I am. And I still have to catch myself. And especially through the challenges and adversities like a career change, I really have to be on top of myself, and I make mistakes, and then I have to pick myself up and recommit. But I've been really focusing the last month, having empathy of what he's going through, what he has on his plate, because that's what he does for me all the time. And considering what I'm sharing with him, what's coming out of my mouth, and being sensitive to him and where he's at, taking on the responsibility for myself, not burdening him unnecessarily with what's going on with me, handling my own challenges, handling my own emotions without burdening my husband. That's an expression of being thoughtful of him and what's going on for him in his life. Another way that we can reciprocate that kindness and caring way, I thought of this last night, just telling them we're happy. Not if you're not, you're not doing that from a place where you're not being genuine, but like just telling my husband, I was away this week at a conference with my team, and getting back last night, I was like, I'm so happy to be home and happy to see you and just so grateful for our life. And thank you so much for being who you are. And it just melted. Actually telling them when we're happy, telling them thank you, and letting them know that, appreciating them for who they are and the ways they show up and the way they show their care. That's that reciprocity of what they give to us all the time. So that's the first thing a man needs, is reciprocity. The second thing that a man needs from his wife is accountability, a willingness to accept responsibility for your role in the issues and challenges in the marriage, and following through to change. When your husband brings up something of like, hey, we really need to watch the budget. When we've got the 10 Amazon packages coming to the door every week, is actually following through and respecting him and holding yourself accountable to follow the budget and recommitting when you get off track. But showing him that you're showing him that the marriage and he are a priority, and that you value him and that you're committed in the relationship. One of the best ways to do that is through our accountability and knowing our role that we play in the problems in the relationship and being willing to change. One of the things that men struggle with the most, that we constantly reinforce to them as their wives and as women, that society constantly reinforces to them, counseling reinforces to them, that they struggle with the most, is that everything is their fault. We put the blame on them for everything. And then when they try to bring something up with us that they would like for us to work on and change, we get defensive. We pull out the Rolodex of the things that they've done in the past, and we do everything we can to wiggle out of any accountability to have to look at ourselves, because we don't want to be exposed and we don't want to face our own shortcomings and limitations. But when you are vulnerable to be accountable, to face those things in yourself and then follow through to change, one, you will feel really good about who you are and living Camp Take Responsibility, and your husband will feel appreciated and that you're committed to him in the marriage and willing to work on yourself. Accountability also means apologizing. As women, we refuse to apologize, or if we even utter the words, I am sorry, it is typically from a selfish place of we don't want them to be mad at us or withdrawn, and we just want to sweep things under the rug. We don't want to be vulnerable to admit that we were wrong, which is why we don't apologize. We don't want the accountability. But a genuine, true apology requires genuine remorse and then follow through and a willingness to change the behavior. It doesn't count and it doesn't do any good to apologize when we've made mistakes or we're acting out in ways that are hurtful and destructive to our husbands, and then continue those behaviors as if it never happened. That shows a lack of commitment to our husbands, a lack of follow through to hold ourselves accountable. A true apology requires change in our behavior. So if you, let's say, use a simple example, if you easily snap at your husband and have a tone and an edge and snap at him and you apologize for it, it means you need genuine remorse, and then you need a follow through to catch yourself so that you begin to outgrow the behavior of snapping at him or having an edge with him. And it doesn't mean we have to be perfect, but that they see an investment from us that we're willing to follow through and change our behaviors. I tell women this all the time. Again, I'm not perfect because 99% of the time I follow through and hold myself accountable in my marriage. When I do make mistakes or we're going through a challenging time, my husband is so forgiving. Good men are so forgiving. It's when we continue the dysfunctional behaviors in the relationship and we make no effort to change that they are hurt and feel disrespected and lose respect for us. So that's number 2, is holding ourselves accountable is something that a good man needs in a relationship for us to show that we're committed and value them in the marriage. The third thing that a man needs from his wife is clear communication. Clear communication. No woman speak and talking in circles, meaning indirect communication, alluding to what we might want, alluding to what we want them to do, expecting them to be a mind reader, and they are not. Good men need clear, direct communication to just tell them what you want. Don't ask vague questions insinuating what you want or talking in code. I chuckled when I began to talk about this one. My husband always asks on Saturday mornings, what are you talking about today? And just always very genuinely interested. And so I was sharing with him this morning and I was telling him the seven things a man needs from his wife. And I got to clear communication and he chuckled. He was like, good luck with that one. And we laughed and he said, I know you work on that often, but man, that's just really hard for you women. This is what I'm not always great at. And so we had a good laugh together. But as women, we talk in this code and we'll ask questions like, what do you want for dinner? Or do you want pasta tonight? Asking them the question of what we actually want instead of saying, hey, I'd like to have pasta tonight. Would that be all right with you? 9 times out of 10, a good man's going to be like, absolutely, sounds great. Because they want us to be happy. But we will make just random comments and put it on them to try to interpret what we are saying, what we want. And then we get upset when they can't. And then they feel wrong and that they can't do anything right. I would say another piece in clear communication, along with not speaking in woman speak and just being forthcoming and saying things in statements of what you would like instead of asking those elusive questions, is also knowing that your husband isn't your girlfriend. Like, don't dump a 15-minute story on him. They aren't wired the same way we are, where as women, we can just talk and totally infer what we're saying and we get the code. A good man gets lost and it's draining. So save those those stories for your girlfriends. Don't dump that on your husband. So that's number 3, clear communication. Number 4, what a good man needs from his wife. Number 4, stay in your lane and treat him like a grown man. Stay in your lane and treat your husband like the grown man that he is. We want to know as women that good men are fully capable of making decisions and caring for themselves in their way. We are the ones that treat them like children, mother them, which over time chips away at their confidence and belief in themselves. And they stop doing anything because they're so scared to be wrong. We project our fears, our worries onto them when they're sharing maybe a challenge they're going through and they're just sharing. And then we get all worked up and get in there and tell them what they need to be doing and play therapist and project our worries and fears onto them when we need to stay in our lane. Let them problem solve, which is what they do naturally, and also just let them be who they are as grown men. I talked to a student this week in my men's course, and bless him, and he said, you can share anything that will help the people out there. And so thank you very much for giving me permission to share. He was telling me a story of what happened recently, that his wife told him he has too many t-shirts and that they needed to schedule a time to sit down and go through the t-shirts and figure out which ones need to be donated. I was just like, I'm so sorry. We are ridiculous in that way. If a grown man wants a bunch of t-shirts, let him have a bunch of t-shirts. He's a grown man. He does not need you to play his mommy and go through his clothes with him and determine which ones need to be donated or not. That's a good example of just staying in our lane. I've also heard from men like that their wives try to tell them what to wear and micromanage the kind of clothes they wear. It actually reminds me, last fall, my husband and I watched the series Quarterback on Netflix, and Kirk Cousins was sharing his wife picks out all his clothes for him. That's what we groom and turn good men into, because we project our own insecurity and incapability onto them and begin to treat them like children and to mother them and get in their lane when they're perfectly capable. And maybe it wouldn't be the clothes you would pick out or how you would do things, but it doesn't matter. We're not right. They're grown men and they need to be treated that way. And we have to realize that they've stopped doing anything and making decisions for themselves because they're scared to be wrong. They just get into a place of give up to get along and go along to get along. And they often will get to a place where it's just like, well, tell me what to do. Because inside they're thinking, I don't want to be wrong, so just tell me what I should do. We've groomed them to default onto us of what they should be doing. So we need to learn to stay in our lane and let them be grown adult men. That's number 4. The 5th thing a man needs from his wife, and I'll go through this one briefly because I have talked about this one, time for himself. The 5th thing a man needs from his wife is time for himself. That men also need time to recharge and decompress from their burdens and responsibilities so that they can fill their gas tank and keep going and have the strength and resilience to manage themselves and their roles and responsibilities as a husband, as a dad, and their work. It's really important that they have time for themselves. The 6th thing that a man needs from his wife, which I've talked about a little bit as well, but the 6th thing is fun and playfulness. To be the woman he thought he married, who liked to have fun and be silly and playful and laugh. It doesn't have to necessarily be the fun if you and your husband met during the days where you were going out and drinking and partying, but just being silly and laughing and being goofy. What happens as women is we perceive men as boys who never grow up. And we begin to become rigid and put our walls up and roll our eyes and squirm away if they are playful or silly or make silly jokes. It feels so much better to take the stick out, as I often say, and let your husband be silly and goofy without judging him, without rolling your eyes, without squirming away, without making fun of him. If he's being silly at a party or gathering, rolling your eyes in front of your friends and making a derogatory joke towards your husband because you're embarrassed that he's having fun. We have to learn to join back in and have fun and be goofy with them. That's what life is supposed to be about. An expression of joy and being alive and enjoying life and being silly at the appropriate times. It's so much more fun to have the stick out and join along with the playfulness and goofiness of your husband than to judge him and make him wrong and bad, that he still enjoys life and likes to have fun. My mentor says you should never get too old or serious where you don't have fun. And that's what happens for us as women is we begin to treat fun as being frivolous and irresponsible, judging our husbands for having fun when we would benefit ourselves and our husbands a lot if we joined back in and were the woman that they met, being fun and playful alongside with them. that's number 6, being fun and playful. And the seventh thing of 7 things that a man needs from his wife, value his opinion. Number 7, value his opinion. That men just want to be treated like a human being who has thoughts and opinions that are valued, reasonable, and important. It doesn't matter if you agree with him or not. I can tell you, I think there was an example this last week where my husband remembered something that we had done a different way than I remembered it. And old me, and I'm like, no, that's not how it happened. It was actually this, and it was this day, and this is how it went. Like, who cares? And it felt so good to just listen and be like, oh, that was a fun memory. I remember that. Didn't matter. He just wanted to share a good memory that he had and share that with me. So it doesn't matter if you agree or not, or if in that situation, if it's how you remember or not. Again, you're not right. You're not right. The good men, they go to work. They are respected. They make decisions all day long. They're responsible. And then they come home and we make them feel like they're dumb and incompetent and not capable. Or that how they feel, their opinions, their memories don't matter or aren't valid. It doesn't take much to value your husband's opinion or to value their thoughts and feelings of what's important to them. We can do that by listening when they talk, not checking out and scrolling on our phone or getting busy doing something else and like, wait, what were you saying? We know we do that. Or when they're sharing something or sharing an opinion or sharing a thought or a feeling with us, that we're just sitting there thinking of what we want to say or defending our belief or our point of view, and then not considering what's coming out of our mouth and how that might sound to our husbands or how it could be hurtful or disrespectful, instead of just listening and validating their thoughts and feelings. It feels so much better. It feels so much better. And the other way too, a deeper expression of valuing his opinion is valuing his solutions to problems in the relationship or problems in your life together. Like, good men are problem solvers, and they're very good at coming up with fair and reasonable solutions to problems. But we get rigid in what we think is the right way to handle it, or we don't want to change, so we're stubborn and won't let in what they are suggesting. When if we let them lead in that way of having fair and reasonable solutions to the problems, all the problems would get solved. We're the ones that hunker down in the problems and want them to be pervasive, so we have something to point the finger out and blame. Good men have fair, reasonable solutions to problems, and it feels really good to value their solution, their opinion, and follow their lead in that way. Again, these are parts of how we get to know ourselves as women, and our softness and our nurturing side and being feminine. These are ways that when we show up in the relationship, we get to know ourselves as women and allow men to lead in the things that they're really good at. And it will make you feel really good about yourself. I had an example of, I had a female student once who was upset because her and her husband and family had a vacation planned and they were on a tight budget and some things had come up unexpectedly with finances. And he suggested, hey, I think it would be better for us and the family that we put this vacation on hold and that we don't spend this money right now. And she threw a giant temper tantrum and strong-armed him into the vacation. And as a good man, he just, okay, fine, because he wants her to be happy and doesn't want to feel wrong. And that's the influence we can have. Instead of like, oh my gosh, you're right, and what a bummer we don't get to go on that vacation, but thank you for looking out for me and the family and our finances, and we'll do it another time. Oh well. Oh my gosh. It makes things so much easier to value how they would solve a problem and their ideas. Another way you can value your husband's opinion is, do things his way every once in a while. Let him go the route he would go to get to the grocery store or wherever you're going, instead of like, shouldn't you turn here? Wait, aren't you going to go this way? Let him go the way he wants to go, or let him cook in the kitchen and make a meal the way he would make it, or let him fold the towel how he would fold it, or make the bed how he would make it, and not go behind him and do it your way. That's all part of valuing his opinion, and makes him feel good about himself in the relationship as a man, and again shows him that we're committed and value him in the marriage. So those are the 7 things that a man needs from his wife, other than the foundations that I've talked about: respect, sex, and affection and appreciation. But the 7 things we talked about today that a man needs from his wife: reciprocity, accountability, clear communication, stay in your lane, treat him like a grown man, time for himself, fun and playfulness, and valuing his opinion. So now that we've got those 7 things, I hope you can see how these all fall under the category of respect and appreciation. It's just being a good partner and being nice, all as an expression of who you are and who you want to be. So again, like I shared in the beginning, ladies, we do these things because it feels good to have this level of character as a woman, as a wife. It feels good to have this kind of self-awareness, to not just be thinking of yourself and being selfish and self-centered. It feels really good to have control over ourselves and our woman ways, and stop ourselves, catch ourselves, and show up in a way that shows we have character and integrity, which is the journey of being happy. This is how we feel good about ourselves. And to me, there is no greater context for us to really know ourselves as women, feel good about who we are, continue to evolve into the best version of ourselves, than being a wife. That's why I have this channel and share my own journey and my work with women over the last decade, is to really redefine marriage as a way to evolve as women and show up as the best version of ourselves. And our husbands get the benefit. And in return, a good man will give you tenfold what you give, because he just wants you to be happy, and will be willing to, again, lay the moon and stars at your feet for just being a good wife and being a good person and a good woman, which makes you feel really good about yourself, and is how you become happy in yourself. And the solution to being able to show up in these ways, you can't do it, again, like I said in the beginning, can't do it to be a good wife. You have to do it for yourself, because it's who you want to be. And how we do that for ourselves is learning to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. Everything I talked about today just becomes an expression of you and having a healthy relationship with yourself when you have that as a foundation. For the men, I always like to share with you, you didn't marry the wrong woman. You just married a woman, and you can't change her and make her give you the respect and appreciation that you deserve as a good man. But you can embrace her not showing up in these ways as your greatest teacher to find your strength and confidence in yourself. I had a student share this week, he had learned in a men's community that he should stay in the lazy river of his wife's emotions and not get sucked into her emotional volatility, and just stay in the lazy river. And I said, yeah, that sounds good. I said, but it doesn't work that way. That you have to actually go into the white water to embrace your wife's woman ways, to build your strength and confidence, and undo the brainwashing and the gaslighting that somehow you are the problem. And that's what we teach good men to do, as a way to regain your strength and confidence, so you can have clarity on what the best decision for you is in your marriage based on your values, to stay or not to stay. And men need to know that it isn't a reflection of you, that how your wife treats you or withholds the things I talked about isn't a reflection of you. It's a reflection of her and the relationship she has with herself. And again, knowing that allows you to let go of believing and buying into the gaslighting of your wife that you are the problem. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. If you haven't, go check me out on YouTube, Rumble, and X. You can find the links in the description below to connect with me there. For those women listening who know you are the problem and want a path forward to take responsibility and change your own inner turmoil and unhappiness, I have a course for women called the Happiness Program, which is the solution to the unhealthy relationship you have with yourself and the issues and challenges you have in your life and your marriage. You can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. And for the good men listening who want a solution to take back the power you've unknowingly given away to your wife, I have a course for you too called the Marriage Rescue Course for Good Men Only that teaches you how to rebuild your strength and confidence as a good man so that you can navigate the relationship with your wife in a healthy, constructive way. Again, you can find the link in the description below to apply for a free consultation with me. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to talking with you soon.